today. So unplanned weight loss is a very important component, not just weight loss. So make sure that we understand it's unplanned weight loss. And you can see that the indicator itself will be controlling for when a person's on a planned weight loss program. So let's once again, as we have before, there are two types of indicators, prevalence and incidence. Prevalence, I'm only using one assessment, and with the incident indicators, I'm using two assessments. So that is the case that in the incident indicators, we always think of it as new. It's new improvement or new decline. Also, remember that these exclusions work for every single assessment you're doing during the quarter. That is, that a person must be in the building at least 93 days. CIHI never uses a full admission assessment or that initial 14-day assessment. And if there's more than one assessment in a quarter, only the very last one is included in the analysis for that quarter. The incident indicators, the first three conditions are identical. However, we have one more condition where we're looking back to a prior assessment, and that is it's got to be at least 45 days ago. Okay, if it's less than 45 days, it will not be included between the two assessments. And it can be no more than 165 days ago, or it will not be used in the comparison. So either one of those conditions. We talked about the population risk adjustment, which I'll cover on the very last day of this series and give you an example, but please note that once again we calculate the QI three different ways at CIHI. Your software vendor cannot calculate the population risk adjustment. So, but CIHI can, because they have the current population of all 600 plus homes, and therefore they're going to calculate your raw score. Then they're going to calculate the theoretical quality indicator using the data from Intereye. And then they're going to calculate the indicator within the province of Ontario. Now it's a little more complicated with that than that, with stratification and some other factors. However, just simply understand that it's a way of equating two different facilities so that we're comparing apples with apples, or as close as we can. Rolling four-quarter, and we talked about this several times, always 12 months of data is being used within the indicator, always 12 months of data. So if you happen to have a huge improvement in the most recent quarter, you're not going to see all of that in the report because 9 months of that 12 months of data is from the prior assessments. And when we have the incident indicator, we include a fifth quarter, this one shown in yellow here, not as part of the numerator or denominator, but as part of the look back for the first quarter here. So when you have to have a look back, that quarter is included. It's still rolling 4 quarters. And weight loss, again, is a prevalence indicator. And you can see the other indicators that we've already covered to date, all in red here. We have not covered any of the improvement indicators, and we've only covered one of the decline indicators. That's the stage 2 to 4 ulcers. Once again, when we look at weight loss, it's in our top 13. So you can see the weight loss is one of the top 13. Oh, sorry, let me go back up. One of the top 13. Health Quality Ontario is looking for about a 5% as the goal. Ontario's most recent average that was published was 6.4%. was the provincial average, so you can use that to compare where you are as relative to the gold standard and where you are relative to the CIHI current average. Notice it's also one of the Esterbrook 13 areas in which nursing practice can influence the functional outcome of an individual. And you can also see that weight loss is going to show up in a RAP, and it's going to show up in RAP number 12, which is called nutritional status. So there isn't a RAP called weight loss, but there is a RAP called nutritional status, of which weight loss is one of the risk factors. Just some definitions from CIHA on the weight indicator. You can see here that weight change question. How would you capture the following scenario? That is K3 weight change. A resident weighed 60 kilos 180 days ago. Resident weighs 70 kilos 30 days ago. And today the resident weighs 66 kilos. So, and the indicator here is that they're both going to have a 5% increase in weight okay? And they've also gained more than 10% in the past 180 days. So we have both a weight gain and a weight loss. CIHI's answer is, please note the following response has been updated. June 1st, 2011. Remove any previous materials. It is possible for a resident who could lose 5% of their weight in 30 days and still weigh 10% more than over the last 180 days. Under these circumstances, K3A weight loss and K3B weight gain will both be coded as yes. Okay, and at one time CIHI did not allow that to happen, both a weight gain and a weight loss. Okay, let's go to the next question. What if you're not able to weigh a resident? How would section K2B weight and K3 weight change be coded if the resident is extremely obese and can't be weighed? And the answer here, the first answer is pretty satisfactory. The second one for K3 is not satisfactory, but however, we must deal with that. Because weight can be an important indicator of health status, it's important that every effort is made to obtain accurate height and weight measurements for each resident. If you are unable to weigh a resident because of extreme obesity, then you could code 9999 in the field. That is, you're not able to weigh. However, K3 looks only at variation in weight, and they're saying if it's not possible to weigh the resident, it is recommended that you use your clinical judgment to determine if the resident has a weight gain or weight loss. So once again, you realize that if it says use your clinical judgment, it typically is double speak for we don't know how, but you're going to have to do it anyways. So, however, you must answer the K3 as to whether or not you believe there's been a weight gain or a weight loss. The next question is also, if a resident wears leg prostheses, do you calculate their weight with or without the prosthetic device in place? And again, in K2B is recorded the resident's current weight in order to monitor nutrition and hydration status and to provide a mechanism for monitoring stability of the weight over time. You would therefore weigh the resident without the prosthetic device in place to remove that variable. Okay, so there are some exclusions other than the general exclusions. End-stage disease, which is recorded at J5C, and hospice care, which is recorded at P1A, and it's item O in the program. So you know how the left-hand side of the list are treatments, and then the right-hand side of the list are programs, and hospice care comes under programs. Please note that a hospice program does not mean that you have a specific designated area of your facility. Designated for hospice care does not mean you have a hospice unit, simply that you have a hospice program or a end-of-life strategy. And then the next exclusion factor is anyone where K5, again in the nutritional section of the MDS, this time K5H, a planned weight change program equals yes. Those people will be excluded as well. So weight loss will not count as a quality indicator against the home. if the person is on a planned weight change program. So what are the triggers? It's a very simple trigger here. You can see that it's in section K3 of the form, weight change, and we're only looking at part A, the weight loss item, where there's 5% and 30 and 10% and 180. And I've just blown it up here so that you can see a little more clearly. Okay. Now, so how is it calculated? Well, it's fairly obvious in this case. We're looking for percent of residents on the most recent assessment who have an unexplained weight loss. So on the current assessment, if the MDS item K3A weight loss is equal to yes, and you're not part of any of those exclusion factors, then this will show up on your quality report. When we look at the RAPs, you can see the nutritional status RAP. It also is triggered when there is a weight loss. So it's simply looking at if weight loss is a factor, and you can notice here that if any of these items, weight loss, complaining about food, leaving 25% of the food behind, a parenteral IV feed, a mechanical altered diet, syringe therapeutic, or stage, a pressure ulcer, okay, any stage of a pressure ulcer. If any one of those factors, you're going to trigger the nutritional RAP. However, you can see here that K3AA all by itself would trigger that particular RAP, and then a care plan decision would have to be put in place. Now, in the CAPS, there isn't a RAP that corresponds, our CAP that corresponds to the RAP that we just looked at. However, there is a dehydration cap, and it has 3 different outcomes. It's not triggered, triggered at a low level of risk, triggered at a high level of risk. And here you can see that weight loss again works into the triggering of this particular cap. So that's how weight loss both impacts your RAPs through the RAP number 12, the nutritional status, and through the dehydration cap through the weight loss item. Okay, now how does it impact your funding level? It impacts funding in the fact that if you have a fever that is in J1 section of the MDS called health conditions, item number H, fever and any one of these following factors will put you into this special care group. So fever and weight loss. So weight loss doesn't impact your funding all by itself, but if it's accompanied with a fever, then it will put you in the special care group. And then you can see what level of funding, whether you're in the 20 highest funding group or the 18th highest funding group. Let me go back up. Group depends on your ADL index score. So remember, ADL goes from 4 to 18, 4 being independent, 18 being totally dependent. And you can see that you move up the scale to a higher level of funding if you're more ADL dependent. And if you look at that special care group, you can see there's a large number of factors, 10 different factors altogether that could put you into the special care group. So you can see that there's cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, quadriplegia. All of those have to have an ADL index score of at least 10. So 10 or higher. You got to be ADL dependent for bed, eating, toileting, and transfer. As mentioned, fever in any one of these factors. Now recall that a tube feed has a caloric intake requirement. So your calories by the tube have to be at least 51% in order to be funded for a tube. Or if you don't have 51%, you could have 26% calories by the tube, as long as you've got at least 501 cc's of fluids by the tube as well over that 7-day window. So there you can see where weight loss is working into the funding model. It works into the CAPS if you're not in Ontario, the RAPs for those who are in Ontario using the RAP calculation, as well as it works into directly in the quality indicator under the percent of people with weight loss when it's unplanned. Okay, so those are the major indicators. Once again, these are the referenced materials that you can access over the web in order to validate those particular components. Now, just before I go, I do want to just draw your attention one more time to the QIP and the health quality indicators. And I know you're probably following those as they're updated each and every year. However, you know, we're looking at them as well. And I've just put a link on my desktop here. And you can see it takes me right to Health Quality Ontario. And then system performance is what I would select next. And then long-term care, if you're in a nursing home, of course, is what you want to have a look at, okay? So we click on the long-term care. And then what you're going to be able to see here is that they give you some statistics as to the average wait time for someone to get into a home. Now this is for all of Ontario. That's 133 days. We also see that there is one for the antipsychotic utilization. And if you just hold the mouse here on that information, you can see the provincial benchmark is 19%. So that's what the province is working towards for that particular indicator. The next indicator on Health Quality Ontario is the long-term care. Now remember, the data on Health Quality Ontario is going to be at least a year or more old. So depending upon when you run the report in a given year. So again, it's not going to give you the current numbers for CIHI, which you can get, okay? Now here we're looking at falls, and again, the benchmark that we're supposed to be working towards is 9%, and you can see in this particular period it was 15%. And then we have those who are physically restrained. 6% is the current average, and the ministry is working towards a 3% on that particular indicator. And then pressure ulcers is another factor where it's currently about 3%, and the ministry is working towards a 1% average. And then we have residents experiencing pain at 6%, and there is no number indicated here, but the last I had heard, I thought it was 3%. However, I'm going to hold off on that just in case my memory is failing me. And then the next indicator is the one with worsened symptoms of depression. There is no number here currently being reported, but it's currently at, or is at 24% during this particular calculation. So you can see those are the indicators that have the focus put on them, and you're able to go in and look at each of these measures, how they're calculated, what's the logic. These are exactly the population risk adjusted indicators that you get from the CIHI webpage. So there's no mystery here. We've seen them before, and they're the population risk adjusted values that appear there. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you see that just the single simple indicator looking at weight loss, K3A, and it impacts all of the major outcomes. That is, it impacts your quality, it impacts your risk levels, and it impacts your performance measures, and it also impacts the RUG funding model. And so it has some importance across the entire spectrum of indicators. And thank you once again. Leave questions in the chat window. Heidi will forward them to me so that we make sure that any questions that you have are answered. Or you could email me directly, paul@medi-care.com, and I can answer questions for you as well if it's on a different topic. Okay, thank you very much, and bye-bye everyone. See you next Wednesday.